Welcome to the deep dive. We're really glad you could join us as we get into some pretty fascinating source material today.
Yeah, looking forward to this one.
Our focus. It's the incredible life story of Cristiano Ronaldo. But, this isn't just going to be about the football stats or the goals, though obviously that's part of it.
Right.
Our mission here really is to unpack the life lessons, the sort of code that allowed someone to come from, well, basically nothing and become everything. It's a journey full of pain, passion, and this relentless drive, even when things looked impossible. Okay, let's unpack this.
And that's exactly why this is so compelling, isn't it?
Yeah.
We're not just looking at the timeline of his life. We're trying to dig into the why.
Yeah, the deeper stuff.
Why did it have such a huge impact? And maybe more importantly, what can anyone listening take away from it for their own challenges?
Definitely.
Because I think, you might think you know the Ronaldo story, but the sources you provided, they show a depth that goes way beyond the usual headlines. Some surprising things in there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So let's start at the beginning. Let's rewind to his childhood. It was marked by hardship, but also, the first signs of this huge dream.
Okay.
We know he started out in Funchal, Madeira, back in 1985. And the sources, well, they make it pretty clear it wasn't easy. Tiny home, family struggling for money.
Yeah.
His dad battled addiction, his mom was a cook, and apparently she even thought about ending the pregnancy because they just couldn't afford another kid. It's a really stark beginning.
It really is. And what's fascinating here, maybe something people don't fully grasp, is how that kind of extreme difficulty seems to have forged this incredible resilience in him.
Yeah.
Not just hunger, but something deeper.
Right.
The sources mention how even as a really young kid, he had this obsessive focus just on the ball. Nothing else mattered. And maybe it wasn't just about escaping poverty consciously, but maybe even then it was his subconscious thing pouring all his energy into the one thing that felt like hope.
Yeah, like a laser focus. It's kind of
Almost like a kind of monk-like dedication, you know? Born directly out of that scarcity. It wasn't just general struggle. It was the focus that scarcity created.
That's a really interesting angle. And there's that quote from him. It's so raw. I had no toys, just a football. And that was all I needed.
Powerful.
Just imagine that. In a childhood with basically nothing, a simple football was his whole world. He wasn't just playing. He was kicking bottles, socks, stones, anything. Because as he said, football wasn't just a game for him. It was his escape. Literally a way to forget the tough stuff around him and just pour everything into this thing that gave him hope, maybe even purpose.
Precisely. And that idea of football as an escape, I think that's absolutely key. It wasn't just running around. It was psychological, emotional.
Right.
It gave him this single focus that maybe kids from easier backgrounds just don't develop in the same way. That kind of almost desperate early dedication, that's what fuels ambition when you have nothing else.
Yeah.
It really shows how passion can just ignite anywhere. And when it starts like that, from scarcity, it becomes this unstoppable force, part of who he is.
And it's that force, that intensity from day one that led him to make that first huge sacrifice, right? Leaving home for Lisbon.
Let him move.
A huge moment. We're calling this part a boy alone in a big city. He was just 12 years old.
Incredible.
And he leaves his family, his friends, everything he knew on that island to move to the mainland. Just think about that for a second. A kid, basically, alone, making this life-changing decision. And the sources are clear. He did it for one reason, to chase a dream that no one else could see but him.
And you have to ask, when you hear about a 12-year-old doing that alone, wasn't he just terrified?
Oh, absolutely.
What do the sources say about the courage that took?
Yeah.
And how does facing that kind of fear so young shape you later on?
Well, he admitted it himself. There's a quote, "I cried every day, but I knew what I wanted." So yeah, it wasn't easy. It wasn't romantic. Lonely nights, cold food, missing home like crazy. But even with all that fear, that homesickness, he just kept going, kept training, kept believing in that dream.
It's true, though. Courage isn't about not being scared, is it?
No, exactly.
It's about doing it anyway, even when you are scared. And that single-minded chase, even when everything was tough, that's defined that whole period for him.
It really forged his mental strength, didn't it? That resilience he'd need later when the pressure really ramped up.
Absolutely. It's a powerful lesson, I think, in how facing your fears head on can be well, the biggest catalyst for growth, turning that present pain into future power.
Yeah, definitely.
And that whole time in Lisbon, it wasn't just a change of scenery. It was a massive psychological shift. He learned to rely on himself, learned that if he wanted something, he had to put the work in, no matter the cost. The sources mention him spending hours alone, just practicing dribbling, picturing goals, totally lost in his craft when no one else was watching. That period, that sacrifice and focus, that's where the foundation was really built.
Right.
That habit of relentless improvement, even when it's just you, that became ingrained.
And what a foundation it turned out to be. All that determination led straight to his big break. Manchester called. Destiny answered.
Yeah, the big leagues.
2003, he's just 18, and Manchester United signs him. Huge leap onto the world stage. Sir Alex Ferguson famously said, "This boy has magic in his feet."
A good judge of talent.
Definitely. But it was clear right away this wasn't just about talent. What did the sources really highlight about his work ethic once he got to Manchester?
Well, if you connect this to the bigger picture, it really drives home that lesson. Talent just isn't enough on its own. Never is.
Right.
The sources make it clear. Ronaldo trained harder than anyone. We're talking like 3 extra hours a day. Every single day. After the main team practice.
3 hours extra. Wow.
Yeah. Obsessed with mastering skills, getting stronger, perfecting free kicks, no distractions, no shortcuts. Just this relentless focus on being the best. The stories are legendary, right? Teammates wanted to chill out after training, and he's like, nope, got work to do.
Yeah, I remember hearing stories like that, setting up cones in his living room.
Exactly. Practicing footwork indoors. It wasn't just dedication. It was this deep understanding that effort compounds. Every little bit adds up.
It's kind of mind-blowing, that level of discipline at 18, choosing extra work over going out when most teenagers are, thinking about other things.
Totally.
What does that tell us, really, about how he saw things even back then, about how greatness is built?
It shows he got it.
Yeah.
He understood, maybe instinctively, that every single minute of that focus was an investment in his future.
Yeah.
He wasn't just working hard randomly. He was strategically investing in himself, piece by piece, building that foundation for everything that came next. He absolutely was. It gives you a real insight into how he viewed time and energy, doesn't it?
It does.
For him, every moment was a chance to get better, to close that gap between where he was and where he wanted to be. It wasn't about the quick fix. It was about the long game, the compounding effort, that relentless push for perfection, even in those early pro years, that really set the stage. He arrived talented, sure, but he became a titan because of that work ethic. It went way beyond what anyone expected.
And that investment, well, it paid off massively, didn't it? Which brings us to glory, pressure, and the fight within.
Yeah, the superstar years.
His time at Real Madrid was just, well, off the charts. Breaking records, winning trophies constantly, scoring goals at a rate that was hard to believe. He became this global icon, a brand.
But there's always a flip side to that kind of massive fame and success, isn't there?
Always.
And the sources don't shy away from it. With all the glory came huge pressure. And constant criticism, even hate sometimes.
Yeah.
He lost big finals, missed crucial penalties, got booed by huge crowds, sometimes even his own fans, which is unbelievable.
Imagine that. Being at the absolute top, scoring hundreds of goals, and still getting booed.
How did he handle that? What did the sources say about his reaction?
It's fascinating, actually. The sources show this really consistent response. He just never gave up. Never slowed down. It was like his mission was just bigger than what anyone else thought. He didn't just put up with the criticism. He seemed to actually turn it into fuel. You know that famous quote, "Your love makes me strong. Your hate makes me unstoppable."
Yeah, iconic.
And it wasn't just a line. It seems like he really lived it. He showed this incredible resilience, kept performing at the highest level, despite all that pressure, all that judgment.
Right.
It really shows that true strength, that unstoppable quality, it has to come from inside, right? It can't depend on what other people think or say.
Like building an internal fortress.
Exactly, a fortress that the boos just couldn't get through.
And that fortress, that internal strength, it leads us right into what we're calling the Ronaldo code. Because his journey isn't just a story. It feels like a blueprint, almost. A blueprint for success that goes way beyond football. It's a mindset, really, forged in all that difficulty.
So what does this all mean? For you listening, beyond just the football highlights, from all this amazing source material, we've kind of distilled 5 core principles, a powerful code that defined his path and honestly could apply to anyone.
Okay, let's hear them.
Right. First one, Train like you're already losing. What's the real meaning behind that, especially when you're already winning everything?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's not about being negative, right? It's about keeping that hunger, that edge, even when you are on top.
Okay.
Think about it, he won 5 Champions Leagues. But the sources say, even after lifting those huge trophies, he was often the first guy back in the gym, analyzing, looking for tiny improvements.
Wow.
He apparently used to tell younger players something like, you think you made it winning 1 trophy, now the real work starts. It's a mindset that sees every win, not as the end, but as a new baseline.
Right, a starting point.
Yeah, from which you have to train, like you're still chasing. Like you might lose it all if you ease off for even a second. It's like a healthy paranoia about getting complacent.
Yeah.
That fuels the effort.
That makes sense. Not pessimism, but fighting complacency.
Yeah.
Okay, next. Believe in yourself when no one else does. We saw that right back when he was a kid in Lisbon. How important was that inner belief when nobody else really got it?
Oh, it's foundational.
Yeah.
Absolutely crucial. Without that core self-belief, even the most talented people stumble.
Yeah.
His story just screams it. Believing in your own vision, even when everyone else doubts you, it's like step 1 for doing anything amazing. When he was just this skinny teenager, people apparently made fun of him, thought he was arrogant or whatever. But the sources show he just doubled down. He didn't need other people to approve. He believed in himself. He provided his own validation.
Exactly.
That inner voice, that certainty about his path, that's what got him through the loneliness, the criticism, all the physical demands. It's like having an internal compass that just keeps pointing away no matter what.
That's huge. Okay, third principle. Let your pain push you forward. From his tough start to all the criticism later on, pain wasn't something that stopped him. It seemed to actually propel him. How did he do that?
Yeah, this really shows how adversity can be transformed, you know?
Yeah.
Instead of letting setbacks or suffering crush him, he learned to channel those tough emotions into more determination, more drive.
Right.
When he got booed or lost a big game, instead of shrinking, he seemed to almost get bigger, stronger.
Right.
The sources are full of stories, him leaving the pitch after a loss, heading straight to train, sometimes alone, just practicing, burning that frustration into fuel.
Wow.
So pain becomes like a teacher,
Oh.
a motivator, an ingredient that turns setbacks into comebacks. It's an active choice, isn't it? To turn suffering into strength.
It really is remarkable. Okay, then we have sacrifice fun for focus. We talked about him picking training over partying as a teenager. Focus is obviously key, but some might say that level of sacrifice, could that lead to burnout? Or just an unbalanced life? Do the sources touch on that?
That's a really fair point. And it is nuanced. The sources definitely highlight the immense sacrifice away.
Yeah.
I mean, he lived this incredibly disciplined life, missing out on a lot of normal social stuff.
Yeah.
But they also kind of suggest he found a deep joy in the process itself. For him, maybe the fun wasn't those fleeting things, but the actual pursuit of mastery, that feeling of getting better every day.
Ah, okay. So a different kind of fun.
Exactly. He wasn't necessarily sacrificing joy, just finding it somewhere different. It comes down to priorities and the long game, right? Real dedication often means making hard choices now that pay off later.
Delayed gratification.
Totally. Taken to an extreme, maybe, where the ultimate fun is actually achieving the goal.
That reframes it really well. Not giving up fun, just redefining it for himself. Okay, last one. Be humble, but stay hungry. He's achieved literally everything in the game, but that drive just never seems to quit. How does he balance being humble with still being so incredibly hungry?
Yeah, that's a tricky balance and maybe often misunderstood. Humility, for him, it doesn't seem to be about pretending he's not good.
Right.
It seems more about respecting the process, knowing how much work it takes, and always being willing to learn. The sources show him, even late in his career, still watching his own tapes, listening to coaches, looking for new training methods.
Even in his late 30s.
Yeah. At Juventus, back at United.
Yeah.
That's humility, knowing there's always more to learn, always room to improve. And that humility, it actually feeds the hunger.
How so?
Because it stops complacency setting in.
Yeah.
If you know you can always get better, you stay hungry for that improvement. There's always another peak, another record, someone younger to outperform. It's about honoring the journey, but always pushing for more.
Wow. Okay, so boiling it all down, the big message here, like the sources say, is you don't need talent to start. You need effort, heart, and vision.
It's absolutely true, isn't it? And these principles, they're not just about football, not at all. They apply anywhere, to any challenge someone's facing.
Totally universal.
Yeah. Building up that relentless effort, that solid self-belief, that resilience when things get tough, being willing to sacrifice, and finding that mix of humility and hunger. That stuff can empower anyone to overcome their own obstacles. Dreams aren't just about being gifted. They're built on showing up day after day and believing it's possible. Cristiano Ronaldo didn't just become a great footballer. He became a symbol, didn't he?
He really did.
A symbol of hard work, incredible belief, and just refusing to back down no matter what. His story really is an inspiration.
So if Cristiano Ronaldo could build his dream from, well, literally the dust from those incredibly tough beginnings, what does that say about the potential lying inside your own challenges?
Makes you think.
What does it suggest about what you could achieve? Maybe you've already had your own Ronaldo moment. Maybe not one big thing, but that mindset where you just refused to quit, where the vision felt worth the struggle, and you chose focus over distraction to chase something important to you. And if you haven't yet, maybe now's the time to start building one.